The Janitor and the Banker. An unthinkable contrast. The morning air was sharp in Brattleboro, Vermont. A quiet mist rolled over the hills as a man in worn flannel boots stepped outside his modest clapboard house. Ronald Reed didn't rush. He never did. He adjusted his cap, picked up his rusted axe and began splitting logs with a rhythm that spoke of decades. Each strike was precise, measured, like everything else he did. Inside, his home smelled faintly of pine and old books. The floor creaked gently beneath his slow steps. Newspapers were stacked in tidy piles beside a battered armchair. A black and white photo of his late wife hung beside the wood stove. No television, no signs of luxury, just the soft tick of a wall clock and the faint scrape of his boots on the linoleum floor. He made tea the same way every morning, boiling water on an old gas burner, stirring in one spoonful of sugar. Then he headed out to the garage to tinker with a neighbour's car. Not for money, just to help. No one paid much attention to him. Just the quiet man who once swept the floors at the gas station. The man who read financial newspapers at the library, alone, with a pen in hand. Now, shift scenes. Laughter spills like champagne over the marble floor of a 15,000 square foot mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. The chandeliers gleam. The air buzzes with orchestral music and the hum of expensive conversations. In the centre of it all, Richard Fosconi, former vice chairman of Merrill Lynch. He raises a glass of Bordeaux, surrounded by CEOs and socialites. He's just closed another multi-million-dollar deal, and the party is for him. Servers in pressed uniforms glide by with hors d'oeuvres. A string quartet plays near the infinity pool. A private art collection glows under museum-grade lighting. Outside, luxury cars line the driveway like trophies. Every detail screams affluence. Italian marble beneath patent leather shoes. Vintage wine, older than some of the guests. A private sauna, indoor theatre, manicured gardens stretching into the horizon. From the outside, it seemed obvious who had won in life. But life has a strange sense of irony. Because while the world looked past Ronald Reed, this quiet janitor who clipped coupons and drove a used pickup, he was quietly building something no one saw coming. And while Richard Fosconi impressed the world with his power and presence, a storm was brewing that no private estate could shelter him from. The contrast wasn't just financials, it was philosophical, invisible, and dangerously misunderstood. And maybe, just maybe, we've been measuring wealth with the wrong ruler all along. The brutal truth: brilliance is not enough. Being good with money has little to do with how smart you are, and a lot to do with how you behave. That's not just opinion, it's Morgan Housel in The Psychology of Money. It hits hard because we've been sold a lie. The lie that intelligence, degrees, titles, eloquence automatically translates into financial success. That if you're sharp enough to navigate Wall Street or ace your MBA, your future is bulletproof. But money doesn't care how smart you are. Richard Fosconi had the resume of a winner. Harvard Business School graduate, former vice chairman at Merrill Lynch. He rubbed shoulders with the financial elite, made million-dollar decisions, and had every advantage the system could offer. But none of it saved him. He built a lifestyle, not a foundation, multiple properties, a mansion so vast it had separate wings, leveraged with loans that were as fragile as they were grand. And when the 2008 financial crisis hit, it all came crashing down. Bankruptcy, foreclosure, public humiliation. It wasn't a lack of intelligence. It was hubris, overconfidence, the belief that brilliance makes you immune to risk. Housel breaks this down with brutal clarity. Financial success is not a hard science, it's a soft skill, where how you behave is more important than what you know. Think about that. Not what you know, but how you act when no one's watching. Fosconi wasn't dumb. He was just financially reckless in a system that rewards appearance over resilience. Meanwhile, Ronald Read, who never studied finance, never went to college, understood something deeper. That wealth isn't about flair, it's about consistency. He was saved. He invested quietly, patiently, without applause. And when he died, he left behind an $8 million fortune. The world wasn't ready for that contrast, because it challenges everything we think we know. This isn't an attack on education. No, it's a warning. That intelligence, without humility and discipline, is a ticking time bomb. And in that contrast between a janitor's calm patience and a banker's blind ambition, you begin to see the uncomfortable truth. Smart doesn't mean safe. Brilliant doesn't mean bulletproof. And the system we admire, it's filled with people too smart to fail until they do. When genius fails, the price of arrogance. At first, it was just a tremor, a dip in the markets, a few shaky headlines about subprime loans. Richard Fosconi barely flinched. After all, he was a titan, Harvard-educated, Wall Street forged. He'd seen cycles before. But this time, it wasn't just a cycle. It was a free fall. Within weeks, the tremor became a quake. Mortgage-backed securities, the very air his wealth was breathing, turned toxic. His empire, built on borrowed money and high leverage, began to crumble brick by brick. The calls started coming in. Banks, lenders, attorneys. Margin calls hit like punches to the ribs. His Greenwich estate, once the jewel of elite gatherings, turned into a financial prison. A property with a $66,000 monthly upkeep, mortgages stacked on top of one another like a teetering tower of cards. And then, it all gave way. Foreclosure notices slapped onto his gates like shame in paper form. One of his properties sold for a fraction of what he owed. Cars gone, art gone, the guest house, the pool, the tennis court, all swallowed by debt collectors. Inside the mansion, the air turned cold, not just from the lack of heating, but from what it represented. Silence, the kind that replaces clinking glasses and orchestras, the kind that whispers, "It's over." Fosconi had once spoken with authority on CNBC. Now he couldn't speak to his own creditors. His name, once synonymous with prestige, now appeared in bankruptcy filings and foreclosure headlines. The humiliation wasn't abstract. It was physical, emotional, it was crushing. Friends distanced themselves. Invitations vanished. His identity, so tightly wound around status and success, began to unravel. He wasn't just losing wealth, he was losing face. This is what happens when confidence mutates into arrogance. When brilliance convinces you that you're untouchable. Fosconi had outsmarted markets for years, but he couldn't outmaneuver his own spending. Morgan Housel says it clearly. The hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. And Fosconi never did. He wanted more, and then it was too late. There's something tragic about watching a man fall from a height he believed was safe, because it shows you that intelligence is no insurance, not against greed, not against pride, not against the quiet storm of poor judgment. This wasn't a man who didn't know better. It was a man who thought he didn't need to be cautious. And in the end, that's what made the collapse so devastating. Not the numbers lost, but the sobering truth. Even the smartest minds can drown in the very wealth they chase. Not because they're not intelligent, but because they confuse intelligence with invincibility. The quiet millionaire, the power of invisible wealth. He died like he lived, quietly. Ronald Read passed away at 92, a former janitor, gas station attendant, and self-taught investor. No one expected the local newspaper to run anything more than a brief obituary. But what followed stunned the town, then the country. He had amassed an $8 million fortune and left the majority of it to his local library and hospital. People were speechless. How? They asked. How could a man who drove a used truck, who never upgraded his wardrobe, who chopped his own wood, leave behind more than most doctors, lawyers, or CEOs ever will? The answer wasn't flashy. It was foundational. Ronald Read spent less than he earned. He invested steadily in blue-chip stocks, held them for decades, and reinvested every dividend. He didn't chase trends. He didn't try to time the market. He didn't talk about money. He respected it. Morgan Housel puts it simply: spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. Ronald never played that game. He lived in a 2-bedroom home he bought for $12,000 in the 1960s. He clipped coupons, mended his own clothes, read financial news at the public library. And each quiet decision, each avoided impulse, became a building block. A coffee not bought, a car not upgraded, a luxury not indulged. None of it felt like wealth, but over time it became wealth. The compounding effect, slow, silent, invisible to the naked eye, was doing the heavy lifting. Not brilliance, not high-frequency trades, not hedge fund tips, just patience. He held stock in companies like Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan Chase. Stable, boring, consistent. And while others were burning money trying to look successful, he was quietly becoming free. There were no parties, no announcements, no lifestyle upgrades. Because Ronald Read understood something most people never do. That wealth is what you don't see. It's the vacation not taken. The designer suit was not bought. The ego left unchecked. In a world obsessed with showing off, he chose to hold back. And in doing so, he built the kind of wealth that speaks loudest in silence. Morgan Housel writes, "There is no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need." Ronald lived that truth every day, for decades. And when the truth came out, when the media discovered that a janitor had left millions, it wasn't just a shock, it was a wake-up call. Because Ronald Read didn't win the lottery. He mastered behavior. He made 1,000 invisible decisions that no one clapped for. And that's what built his fortune. Not noise, not brilliance, discipline and time. An astonishing revelation. Wealth beneath simplicity. The news broke like a lightning bolt through Brattleboro. Ronald Read, the man in the flannel shirt who swept floors and fixed cars for neighbours, had left behind more than $8 million. No one believed it at first. At the library, where he spent hours reading stock pages, the staff stared in silence. At the gas station where he once worked, customers shook their heads in disbelief. Even his stepchildren were stunned. They had known him as kind, quiet, modest, but a millionaire. That didn't fit the picture. How could it? He never flashed money, never bragged, never even hinted. His boots were always scuffed, his house unchanged for decades. But behind that simplicity was strategy. Behind every small act of restraint, there was intention. As the details came out, so did the admiration. His donations were not symbolic. He gave $1.2 million to the local hospital, $1.2 million to the town library. People wept, not just for the money, but for what it meant, that someone so unassuming had been carrying this quiet power all along. There was no viral moment, no dramatic reveal, just a simple will, and a legacy that whispered louder than most ever shout. Suddenly, the town saw him differently, not just as the janitor with the old truck, but as a man of remarkable discipline, a man who didn't need applause to act with purpose. Morgan Housel reminds us, wealth is what you don't see. And Ronald Read proved it. He rejected the performance of success and instead chose the patience of real wealth. No upgrades, no status games, just a quiet mastery of self. And in that moment, when the truth came out, something shifted. Neighbours looked inward. Some felt shame. Others felt inspired. because they realized maybe they'd been measuring the wrong things. The leather seats, the designer labels, the showy vacations, none of it compared to the quiet power of a man who had the courage to live below his means. Ronald's story wasn't just about money. It was about restraint, vision, and the kind of wealth that grows in silence. And maybe the most astonishing part wasn't the size of his fortune. It was that he never needed anyone to know. Crossroads of destiny, choosing your path. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because this story isn't just about Fusconi or Reed, it's about you. Right now, whether you see it or not, you're standing at a crossroads. One path is loud, thrilling, seductive. The path of Richard Fusconi. It offers praise, admiration, status. It's the luxury car, the big house, the borrowed lifestyle. It's dinners you can't afford with people who don't care. It's the comfort of appearing successful, even if you're drowning inside. But that path ends in silence, in shame, in sleepless nights and desperate debts. Because it's built on sand. And when the storm hits, and it will, nothing stands. The other path is quieter. It won't impress anyone at first. It's not about showing off, it's about showing up. It's the path Ronald Read walked. Day after day, choice after choice, he stayed the course. No applause, no spotlight, no shortcuts. It's the $20 you didn't spend, the raise you didn't inflate your lifestyle with, the ordinary car you kept when others upgraded out of ego. It's small until it isn't. That second path is boring in the beginning, but somewhere along the way, it turns into peace, into freedom, into the power to give, walk away, breathe. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. This isn't about spreadsheets or stock picks. It's about emotion. It's about how you handle envy, insecurity, pressure, pride. Because every day, the world will tempt you to look rich, but your future begs you to be rich. You don't need to be a genius. You need patience, discipline, and the courage to be underestimated. Morgan Housel said it best. Saving is the gap between your ego and your income. And Ronald Reed kept that gap wide open, while Fusconi let his ego swallow everything he had. So now the question echoes back to you. Do you want to chase noise or build wealth in silence? Do you want fleeting validation or lasting independence? Do you want the applause now or the freedom later? It's not easy, but neither is bankruptcy. And when it's all said and done, your life won't be defined by how much you earned. It will be defined by what you kept, what you built, what you could walk away from without flinching. This is your moment. This is your choice. And the path you pick today writes the story they'll tell about you tomorrow. Your moment has come. The quiet revolution begins. This is the part where the noise fades and the truth stands alone. Because now you've seen it. The Harvard banker who lost everything, the janitor who built millions in silence, and the invisible thread that separated their destinies wasn't IQ, wasn't education, wasn't status, it was behavior. Morgan Housel said it with piercing clarity. Financial success is not a hard science, it's a soft skill, where how you behave is more important than what you know. Let that settle in. Not what you know, but how you act when no one's watching. You don't need Wall Street connections. You don't need to be a genius. You need to master yourself. Your impulses, your emotions, your habits. Fusconi had brilliance, power and prestige, but his behavior chased excess. It ignored risk. It collapsed the empire he built with his mind. Reed had no titles, no spotlight, no fancy suits. But his behavior, quiet, disciplined, intentional, built a fortune brick by brick. So ask yourself, right now, without excuses, what path are you walking? Are your choices fueled by fear of missing out? By the urge to impress? Or are they rooted in patience, restraint, vision? Because this isn't just about dollars. It's about dignity, about whether you control your money or it controls you, whether your future will be dictated by chaos or by character. And if you felt something shift inside you during this story, don't let it fade. Make it real. Declare it publicly. Comment below, behavior beats brains. Not just as a phrase, but as a decision. A quiet rebellion against the noise, the pressure, the lies we've been told about success. You now know what most people never learn. That wealth isn't loud, it's silent. That real financial strength isn't about brilliance. It's about behavior, repeated in the dark, when nobody's watching. And if this truth found you today, it means you're ready for more. More clarity, more freedom, more hard-hitting truths that rewrite everything you thought you knew about money. This isn't the end. It's the first crack in the illusion. And what's coming next will challenge you, change you, awaken you, because once you see behind the curtain, you don't go back. You build forward, quietly, powerfully, relentlessly. Your moment has come. The quiet revolution begins now.